Chanel did not make the 255 powerful by adding more decoration. It made it powerful by giving women something luxury rarely offered them: freedom. That sentence contains the entire argument. Everything else in the story is an explanation of how one practical design decision, a chain strap on a luxury handbag, rewrote the meaning of what a luxury handbag was supposed to be, what it was allowed to be, what it could do for the person carrying it. Before the 255, a luxury handbag was largely a held object. You carried it. It occupied your hand. Your hand was occupied. That is not a small thing. Hands are how you move through the world. Hands are how you write, gesture, open doors, hold things, signal confidence. A handbag that lives in your hand takes something from you in exchange for what it offers. Beauty and burden, simultaneously. The 255 changed that. And in doing so, it changed far more than fashion. This is the full story. To understand what Coco Chanel was building toward, you have to understand what she was building against. The early 20th century had its own relationship between women's clothing and women's movement. Fashion of the era, the structured silhouettes, the elaborate construction, the surfaces layered with ornament and intention, was spectacular in ways that often came at a physical cost. The clothing was designed largely for being seen, for standing, for arriving and being received. Movement was secondary. Practicality was almost beside the point. Chanel found this unacceptable. Not in the abstract ideological sense, though her perspective was, by the standards of her time, genuinely unconventional, but in a deeply practical sense that she was a woman who moved, who worked, who built a business and ran it, who needed her clothes and accessories to function in the same world she operated in. Decoration alone was insufficient. What she was interested in was elegance that survived contact with actual life. She borrowed from menswear when menswear was more comfortable. She used jersey fabric when it was considered fabric for undergarments because it moved well. She simplified silhouettes that had been complicated for the sake of complication. Each decision looked like a style choice. Each decision was, underneath the surface, a functional one. The handbag was the next logical step. In February 1955, the date from which the bag takes its name, Chanel introduced a new design. The bag was rectangular, structured but not rigid. The exterior was quilted in a diamond pattern, a surface treatment that had practical roots. The quilting added structure and gave the leather resilience without stiffness. The interior was organized with intention, compartments for the things a woman actually needed to carry, rather than an undivided cavity that required excavation every time something was needed. A lipstick compartment, a small mirror pocket, a zipper compartment. These details communicated a philosophy. The person who carries this bag has a life to manage, and the bag is designed to help her manage it. But the defining element was the strap. A chain. Metal links, interlocking, falling over the shoulder, not a short grip for the hand. A long chain designed to sit on the shoulder and leave both hands free. The chain strap was not, in isolation, a new object. Chain had been used in fashion before, but on a luxury handbag positioned as the primary carrying mechanism, it was something new. It announced a different intention. This bag was not designed to be carried on the way to a function and set down at the table. It was designed to be worn. Worn the way a garment is worn. Present on the body, not a separate object requiring perpetual attention. The hands were free. The significance of free hands may seem minor from a modern vantage point. We carry bags on our shoulders without thinking about it. The shoulder bag is the default. It is everywhere, in every material, at every price point. It has been everywhere for so long that it is easy to forget it was not always everywhere. Before designs like the 255 normalized the shoulder carry, the hand-carried bag was the standard for luxury goods. And hand carrying is, by definition, an occupation. The bag requires monitoring, management, occasional switching from one hand to the other. It draws a portion of your attention simply by existing. The chain strap removed that cost. And what happened when the cost was removed was not merely logistical, it was symbolic. The woman wearing the 255 over her shoulder moved differently. She arrived differently. Her hands were available for other things, for greeting, for working, for existing in the world without the peripheral consciousness of managing the object she had paid considerable money to own. The bag served her, not the other way around. That inversion, a luxury object designed explicitly to serve the wearer rather than simply to be owned by her, was the radical content of the 2.5, dressed in beautiful leather. Hidden inside a chain, Here is the central contradiction that makes this story worth examining. Luxury has historically drawn some of its power from impracticality. The impractical object communicates that the person who owns it does not need to be practical. The elaborate, the delicate, the fragile, these signal abundance because only someone with sufficient resources can afford the things that cannot survive ordinary use. The 255 inverted this logic. It was practical, deliberately, unapologetically practical. And yet it became one of the most powerful luxury objects in fashion history. Not despite its practicality, but in some meaningful sense, because of it. The practicality was itself a statement, one that said the person carrying this bag was someone who moved through the world actively, who needed her hands, who had things to do. Practicality, dressed in Chanel, did not diminish the luxury signal. It changed what the luxury signal meant. What made it practical also made it powerful. The quilted surface became its own language. Once the 255 established the vocabulary, diamond quilting, chain strap, rectangular structure, refined hardware, that vocabulary became readable, and readable luxury surfaces are surfaces that communicate without requiring explanation. The quilted chain strap bag meant Chanel to anyone who had absorbed a sufficient amount of fashion culture. It meant Paris, and the specific Parisian idea of elegance that the brand had spent decades embodying and projecting. The bag did not just communicate the brand. It communicated a world, a sensibility, a way of being dressed, of being put together, of having taste of a particular kind. These are not small communications. They are the reason people spend significant sums on objects that have functional equivalents at a fraction of the cost. You can carry your belongings in almost any bag. The choice of which bag communicates something about how you see yourself and how you want to be seen. The 255, in particular, communicated fluently and consistently across decades. Fashion changes constantly. Trends arrive and recede and arrive again. The 255 did not significantly change with them. It maintained its shape, its chain, its quilting. And that consistency, that refusal to be seasonal, became one of its most powerful attributes. A bag that was relevant in 1955 and is still relevant now is not a trend. It is a standard. The quilted chain strap silhouette eventually became one of the most echoed design vocabularies in fashion. This is the particular fate of truly influential design. It is not imitated because it is ordinary. It is imitated because it worked. Because the combination of form and function that the original achieved was legible enough to be recognizable, desirable enough to be sought after, and coherent enough to survive translation into other materials, other price points, other contexts. Every quilted handbag with a chain strap that has appeared in fashion since the 1950s, at every level of the market, from luxury houses to high street retailers, exists in conversation with the two tiers. 55, whether the designers who made those bags acknowledged it or not. The design became a reference point, a grammar that fashion writers and designers and buyers understood and referenced and responded to. That reaches its own form of power. The original does not lose status when it is imitated. It gains a different kind, the status of the source, the thing that came first, the object that set the terms. The Chanel 255 is still in production. It has not been reinvented in any fundamental way, because fundamental reinvention would require explaining why the original was insufficient. And the original is not insufficient. The quilting, the chain, the structure, the compartments, they continue to function as designed. The women who carry it in the present are carrying something made according to the same logic that shaped the first one. That continuity is unusual in an industry where obsolescence is the business model. Fashion sells newness. The 255 sells permanence. It sells the idea that some objects are designed not to be replaced, but to be kept. Worn until they take on the character of their owner, until the chain has been touched so many times it has memorized the warmth of a particular wrist, until the leather has softened and darkened and become specific, not just to the model or the season, but to the person who carried it through years. That is what the chain strap made possible. Not just free hands. A free relationship between a woman and an object designed, for once, entirely around her. This is the full story. From the world of luxury that required women to carry its elegance as a burden to the designer who built a different logic into everything she made. to the February morning in 1955 when a chain strap and a quilted leather body entered the market and quietly changed the conversation about what a luxury handbag was allowed to be. The decoration was never the point. The freedom was. This is the Bag Archives.